Hello, well, welcome to video 2 in the series that I've recorded with Kicki Hansard, all about how you can raise your awareness about who you are, raise your consciousness in the work that you do around birth. So in the last video, we talked about how some of the more emotional moments that you can have as a birth worker and how they can impact you in your work and what you can do to help to support you so that you can better support others. In this video, we're going to be talking about your emotional needs. And these are your emotional needs as a human being, your emotional needs as a woman, but maybe where those emotional needs might be getting in the way of your work as a birth worker. And so this is an interesting conversation that I think it's going to be really beneficial to listen to. Certainly if maybe you've thought about this, you've worried about this, you've wondered at this about yourself and whether it is happening to you. And so, but we talk about this, go into some examples so that maybe you can start really taking a closer look at your own what's going on for you and see whether that is something that is maybe getting in the way of your work and being better at what you do. So I hope that you will enjoy this conversation that I have with Kicki, all about how your emotional needs might be getting in the way in your work as a birth worker. Enjoy the video. So one thing that I'm really interested in with the work I do, obviously, is all the emotional needs stuff, because I'm in loads of birthing groups. I'm in some doula groups, birth professional groups, all that good stuff. And one thing I see a lot is people that I perceive to be responding according to some of the emotional needs they've got. And so, we all have emotional needs. We've got the emotional need to be loved, to be accepted, to connect. These are all sort of needs that we have. And maybe that because of the emotional intensity of doula work, it's drawing people in who are trying to satisfy their needs, their emotional needs, through their work. And so I'm really interested in that because I have a sense or a hunch that there's probably quite a lot of doulas out there that are doing this work because of their emotional need, because of their need to mother or to be mothered or to be the wise mother, maybe they didn't have the mother relationship that they wanted and that they can now pretend to be that for somebody else, or
yes,
and so I don't know. And so I don't know, like, what do you think about that? Do you think there's some of that going on?
I think that's quite worrying, in all honesty, because yes, the one thing I do know is everyone are like they are for a reason, and everyone do things. That's not an excuse for the things that people do, but it's an explanation for what people do. And even though we try very hard, I know in the doula preparation courses, to get the women that come along to talk about their own experiences and kind of complete their own stories. It's a short course. It's probably, it's not enough time to do all that. And you do find that a lot. I remember being that doula myself, the new doula, who felt quite frustrated and annoyed with my clients sometimes because they weren't doing what I told them. It's like, if you just listen to me, it became about me, and me, being the expert or being the mother, telling them, this is what you do. And I also see often doulas disappointed because it's like what happened to them or is happening to them in their current life, it happens to them in their doula life. The clients let them down or, took advantage of them, or they feel that's what happened. They have all this kind of, they get all angry with their clients because they are, they're doing all these things to them, treating them badly or, they feel taken advantage out of. And I'm just wondering often, is that because how they feel anyway?
Yeah.
Or at the same time, they become so important that they're there, cooking dinner, bringing dinner around every night. I couldn't have done with my doula. It's just the best, that feedback, or really going out of your way completely to help your clients, which I guess is nice, but I don't know how sustainable that is.
Yeah, so I imagine that there's a real need to be needed by some of these women that are doulas, where they, maybe they're not getting the need, the feeling of being needed maybe by their family, And they know that because of the vulnerability of birth, that this woman's really going to want her there, really going to need her support, and she's going to be able to give it in a way that the woman's going to accept it. Whereas maybe she's got family members that she's offering that love and connection to, and they're just kind of being a bit cold with her, and it's hard to give love like that and not have it received. Whereas you know that a mother in need is going to take it in bucket loads and take it all on. But maybe that means they end up giving way more than they absolutely need to in that moment. And that isn't going to be sustainable for them long term anyhow. But I'm wondering as well whether that kind of stuff means that they might step way over their job description, for want of a better word, as a doula, and spending tons of time compared to maybe what they're contracted to. And whether, when they work out the hour rate at the end of it, it kind of doesn't look like they're earning a lot of money, Does that happen a lot?
Yeah, it does. And it's a big subject all about this money situation, and how I remember reading actually a doula putting on a forum about how she worked out that basically she'd worked a whole year and earned no money really. And I think it's definitely that. It's definitely that over... Because doulas will often say, well, it's not about the money. And it's true. It's not just about the money. However, you need to be able to pay your bills, your mortgage. This is a job. It is not a hobby. For some doulas, it is a hobby because they don't need to have that income. But yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's a real problem in the doula world. And there's been quite controversial stuff going on earlier this year or last year. There's a specific doula organization in the US who are very, all about the doula, and that you should make good money and you should charge what you're worth. And then you have the other end of the doulas that are, this is community, we support each other, and it's all very nice, but don't make any money. But I remember a client once who gave me a tip, and it was a really nice, generous tip. And he said, I'm giving you this tip because I want you to still be here in 2 years' time when I'm having my second baby. And the way you're charging, you're not going to. So I'm willing to pay you this. It was £200 more than my fee, which is like, wow, why would you do that? But he said, you're not going to be here if you don't charge this.
Yeah.
It just shows that doulas need to be, I think what they need to know is that it's okay to charge and to have boundaries, and you're still a good doula even if you're not giving up your whole life, to support this client. I
think I've got quite strong views around the professional aspect or the work aspect around the doula work, because I too hear a lot of discussion and women talking about, well, we want to be there to support the birth, and it's really important we be there, and this idea about whether or not to charge. But it's like, at the end of the day, if you really want to bring the best of you to that birth, you need to look after yourself first, and you can't be there as a birth worker if you end up having to quit it all and go and get a job in a call centre, because then you're not the birth worker that you could be, and you're not making an impact and bringing positive birth experiences to the world, which is what the world needs right now. So people need amazing doulas. Like, that doulas are totally underrated and I had never heard of a doula before I was pregnant. I was a university educated 36-year-old woman with a senior professional role in a big global organisation, and I hadn't heard of doulas. Why did I not know that this was a job that existed? I mean, doulas aren't flying their flag enough. They're not kind of going out there and they're keeping small, they're playing small. We need to be hearing about doulas before we're pregnant. We need to know that there's this army of amazing women that can support women. And also, we need to know that there's an army of amazing, strong women, because doulas aren't just any old women, in my experience. I mean, I've recently started working in the birth world, and I have been, amazed in such a brilliant way at the sheer strength and awesomeness that is the doula, that is the birth worker, because they are just so and I can feel myself getting emotional about it, because they're so important, and they help a woman in such important ways, and they absolutely need to know that they are worth every single penny, and that they need to charge for what they're doing
enough so that if they want to do free births, they can. But first and foremost, the first 10 births of the year need to be paid at full rate. And after then, do some free ones. But first you need to feed yourself. First you need to make sure your family are being looked after. How can you look after somebody else if you're not looking after yourself? That's first rule of, Doula Club is look after yourself first. You can't hold the space if you're stressing about your bills. No. If you're stressing about your childcare, if you're wondering how you're going to afford to get back, or the longer this birth goes on, that your kids haven't got childcare, you need to go back. You can't hold the space if that's going on, and you've got all this stuff going on. And so I think you absolutely need to charge what you're worth. And I think there's this emotional stuff is getting in the way. That need to be needed, that need to be, whatever those emotional things are happening. I think they're getting in the way of doulas really being as amazing as they could be. And I saw that article that you're referring to about that organisation in the US. I thought, maybe there's some things they're doing that feel a bit, bit off. But my goodness, at the root of that, they're actually doing amazing work and helping women to go out there. So I think there's a lot we can learn from that, personally at least. So, but I want to go back to the emotional stuff, because that's the bit that I'm really interested in. So, like, thinking about why a doula, why does a doula become a doula? Like, why did you become a doula?
Yeah, I became a doula because I wanted to support couples or mums, especially, it's for the women, in the postnatal period. Because I found it really tough having a baby. I was so surprised, that it wasn't all this, romanticized picture of walking along the street with your pram and sitting down for a coffee. I mean, I had a kid that just wanted to feed and scream all the time. So I really felt awful. I really felt like, what have I done? Well, I've kind of ruined my life, even, I felt. And then I realized as I became more used to being a mum, speaking to other mums, that actually it's not unusual to feel like that most mums feel like that. And I thought, why is no one there telling everyone this? Why didn't my friends that had kids tell me that I might feel like this? But then I read about doulas and I thought, this is perfect. I can be that person. And people will actually want me to say that, because they're going to be hiring me as a postnatal doula, and I can help them in that period so they can enjoy their baby, because that's the biggest reason. So I guess mine was, because I cared about women and I wanted them to have the support that I didn't really feel I had. Even though I had good support, I didn't have that honest kind of practical support.
And I wonder whether or not there's a lot of that going on, whether there are women going into being doulas because they want to give what they didn't have. And so what is it that they didn't have? Was it, you went in because you wanted support. And so you then went in offering support. So what about those doulas that didn't have the mothering support, and so they want to offer that mothering support? And so at what level, how far does that emotional need go in terms of what we're trying to overcompensate with what we never had? And there's a bit of a danger with where we're trying to make up for something that we didn't have, that there's an emotional charge going on there because we're just trying to restore balance somewhere. Whereas you get some doulas, I think, that go into being a doula because they've just had an amazing birth. They've just been turned into a birth junkie, and they really want other women to discover that and to have that as well. And so there's a very different energy going on with that. When you're going in there, you've had an amazing birth, it's all been amazing, and you want other women to have that too. That's got a whole different, I wouldn't say there's an emotional need going on in the same way there to somebody that's trying to make up for what they didn't have, whatever that might be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but and also you have the women that had really terrible experiences, and then they get into it because they want to protect other women from having the same. So it's the protection from. So I think they're all very problematic, to be fair, because you're not selling, even if you had a wonderful birth experience, you can't sell that or give that to someone else because it might not be wonderful for them anyway. They might not want to have that experience. And as a doula, that's not your role. And protecting someone, protecting someone is taking over from them. It's making decisions for them. So that's not about the empowering we talk about doulas do. It's, if you're trying to sell a certain birth experience or protect someone from a bad one, you are totally not helping the woman. You know, you are not listening to her. You are, but I can see it's coming from a place of care. I'm not saying that it's to be nasty. It's because they care and they don't want anyone else to feel like, a bit like I did. I didn't want anyone to feel like I did, but I know women will feel like I did. That's normal. Yeah. So that's the difference.
So I guess it's really sort of understanding where you're coming from, going into doula work, doing the emotional work so that it's not about you and your needs or whatever your experience was, because you just need to let go of all that. You can't allow that to get in the way of you supporting that woman, because whenever you support that woman, it's absolutely got to be about what she wants, what she needs, not about what you want and you need. And if you're bringing all that to every time, to everyone that you're dealing with, can you imagine? I'm just, inviting anybody listening to this who might be doula that might have some of this stuff going on, how that is going to be getting in the way, and how the woman is going to be picking up on that when she's talking to them. So if there's a woman that's all about the positive earth and she's had an amazing experience, the woman hearing that at their end, she might feel completely bombarded by this kind of message, and there might be the natural birth agenda, the home birth agenda coming out really strong, and she might be just all up for an elective C-section because that's what she wants, and she doesn't want to hear all that stuff about natural birth. She's just not interested. So in that moment, and but the doula's like, but in natural birth's amazing, and you'll feel so empowered. It's like, stop, that is not what she wants. You're bringing your own stuff to the table here. But that can be really hard to let go of, can't it? I think.
Of course.
But I think the mothering, I want to touch on the mothering bit, because I did a doula training recently, birth professional training, and we did a really good piece of emotional clearance on the course that has had huge impact that we didn't really see coming, and it was the need to be mothered versus the need to mother. And I think there's a lot of birth professionals that have this going on, and it's a very powerful dynamic where maybe you're stuck at one end, or you dabble in both ends, and you can't kind of let go of either end of it. And so when you are with your client, this mothering, and maybe it can be slightly suffocating sometimes when you're kind of mothering too much, but also you might need that in return. You might need that kind of feedback from maybe other birth professionals. You might need that support. And so is that an eye roll that you're familiar with?
I can totally see that. You just have to look at a forum for doulas, and you'll see that going on. It's interesting, all this kind of stroking and, oh, you're so wonderful and you do so much. I mean, I guess it's nice, but you also see there's always very often the same doulas that are doing all this wonderful job. And I remember actually in a doula, this is more of the doula role, or the view of the doula, how she sees you should be. What is a doula, and who's the person you can copy. That is the standard doula, and it's all about organic food and Steiner school and all these kind of really ideas we have that you should be able to give unconditionally all the time. Maybe that is getting in the way of this, because what do we say? Mothering the mother, the role of the doula, mothering the mother. So we have that there, the mothering, which maybe might not be completely accurate, because mothers, you think different type of mothers. You've just described them.
Using the word mother is a huge. I think you're asking for trouble by using that word for a start, because that means so much to so many people. Like, you cannot, for some people that's going to be an awful emotional trigger for them, because they might have had an awful mother. They might have had no mother. She might have died when she was 3. So that carries a lot of pain. You might have an amazing mother that's just the best thing ever. Using that word is highly emotional and can mean so much to so many people. But the problem is when a doula comes in thinking she's got to mother the mother, like, what does that mean for her? And what does mother mean to the client? And already you're on, really, there isn't a kind of standard playing field that we can all buy into as to what mother means, Exactly. And also when you think about mothers in generally, and as a parent, how my mothering style is and versus other mothering styles. And already, I've got very clear ways about how I want to be as a mother, and I have no qualms with being the strict no, that's an absolute no. I'm not seeking love, attention constantly from my kids. I'm quite happy to be hated in the moment if it means I'm instilling a value or I'm making sure they learn a lesson. But some mothers can't do that because they want there's the emotional need for that love and connection all the time. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, what kind of mother are you, and what's your mothering style, and how are you going to be bringing that to your, for me, I think it opens up a whole can of worms,
Yes.
emotionally speaking, that is dangerous when it comes to supporting somebody in birth, because that woman in her pregnancy and in her birth, she's emotionally vulnerable, she's emotionally suggestive, she will pick up on fears, she'll pick up on emotions, any vibration, anything that's going on in you, she's going to be picking it up subconsciously or consciously, and you need to be clear. You need to have all that stuff out of the way. That's my view. I don't know, what do you think? Am I speaking out of line, or what do you think?
No, I can agree with you more. You're absolutely right, because we do get that. I think the more dangerous thing for me is when women are being told to not do this and not do that, and I see that often. Written or talked about, that we should really tell our clients what it's going to be like. An induction, for example, they should avoid those things. It's like all these negative thoughts that a doula has about something that's happened in her own experience is being put onto the client. So I think that all our own stuff needs to be very much out of the way, so that we can actually listen to the client we're supporting, so that she can have the experience she wants.
Yeah, which is ultimately what they're there for, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So when they're training as a doula, do they... you said that the courses are quite short, so I'm just wondering, and even when I think about when I was pregnant and I was learning about birth, I was so overwhelmed at how big the birth topic is.
Yes.
And so... I'm just, I must have spent weeks reading about birth. So I'm just thinking, what do you get time to do on those courses? And are you focusing on maybe this emotional piece? Do you, is there that going on? Or is there enough of that going on to prepare doulas, do you think?
We do focus on that, but it's not enough. It's not enough going on. And actually, I say that in the course. This is kind of the beginning. You might need to do more work on this. And I also ask everyone to reflect on the course afterwards. It's a written assignment, and one of those things are to come to terms with their own experiences. And I think I also believe that becoming aware of that this will impact you, because you are going to be working in this environment where there could be lots of triggers for you from your own experiences. You really need to be okay and know about this. And I do tell some stories as well from my own experience, how I learned gradually to make sure that I wasn't bringing my own stuff all the time. But I mean, you try, you're aware of it, but you don't know when something's going to happen.
No, I know that, like in the work that I do when I help pregnant women to prepare for the birth, and I do this huge piece with them around the emotional resilience. There's a big bit around letting go of their ideal birth, emotionally speaking. So if it doesn't end up going that way, they're not going, oh, but I wanted my home birth. So they're able to go with the flow a bit better, emotionally speaking, and flexibly respond, but also to make peace with their worst birth outcome, so that if that is for them, they're not going, and getting all stressy about, oh my God, it's a C-section. I didn't want a C-section. But, making peace with that as an outcome. But then the other piece, which I think isn't covered a lot, and which I think birth professionals could benefit from, is identifying your own stuff that has the potential to be triggered in the birth. Yeah. So, let's say there's a birth and the consultant wades in. He wasn't even invited. He's just wandered in because he's a nosy bugger. And he's suddenly decided he's going to tell so-and-so and he's telling a load of people what to do. He's being rude and he's disrespectful. So if there's people in that room that are triggered by rude men who are being disrespectful, everybody's going to be in an emotional state in that moment, going, who's he thinking? And they're all going to be triggered. So if you haven't worked on your trigger of being confronted by somebody who's disrespectful to you, you wouldn't, on the face of it, think that's a birth thing to work on. No. It's a life thing, and it's possibly going to be triggered in the birth space. And so that's why it's worth exploring what your own stuff is, I think, going into the birth, and especially as a doula, because you just don't know what that midwife's going to be. She might be having a really bad day, and she might be really rude and really disrespectful to you as the doula, because you're kind of, they think you might be getting in the way. And so you need to be able to respond calmly to her and not go, nah, 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 nah. back.
Exactly.
You know, or not do that and have it going on inside and just feeling like you're like, I could punch you, but keeping it in, because the mother is going to pick up on that, right? She's going to pick up on the way that your vibes just change. So I think it's hugely important to work on this other stuff that just gets you in life, because birth is just a microcosm for life, isn't it? It just, you can't kind of think that going into birth we can just kind of compartmentalize, because it's all going to show up there, isn't it? Whether it's your stuff or the mum's stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also you'd be working with her partner, which might, you know, and things that he might do or she might do can trigger lots of doulas, I'm sure. And also as a postnatal doula, working in a house with other kids and the way they're parenting and your kind of own attitude to how it should be done, it really is a lot of, and you can pick all this up if you're aware. You can think, why am I feeling like so angry with this child? You know, why? What's going on here? You know, and it's important, because you have to. At the end of the day, you have to be professional and totally step out of a certain way, because that's how you do things or how you expect things. So I couldn't agree with you more. The emotional need of why women are doulas is something that we probably could or should explore a lot more, or doulas should be exposed to that fact more.
So I'm now really interested in maybe how the emotional need piece might affect the whole business piece with doulas, because we've talked about how emotional needs might just affect your ability to do your job as a doula, but what about your ability to keep your job as a doula?
Hello, it's me again. Now, I hope you enjoyed that. Now, I did have to cut that conversation because we're going on to some meaty stuff now, talking all about the business side. Because of course, yes, we want to be able to support the families in the best way possible. But we can't do that if we're worrying about the money. We can't do that if we're trying to juggle childcare. We can't do that if we've got other stresses going on. And so in order for us to be able to best support the women, the one thing that absolutely needs to be in place is that it's sustainable for us and we can pay our own bills, feed our own family, and really therefore be completely present and hold the space for the families that we're working with. So the next video is all about that. Tune in, I'll see you next time.